and meeting, and thank you all for coming. And thought we'd do introductions first and sort of introduce everybody and see if we have any new members. I'm George. I'm the current president of the CCBA. Next to me is
I'm Paul Wisco.
Paul.
I'm the first vice president.
And
Mark.
Mark's the second vice president, and also on the tech side of things. And he's done a fabulous job over the last year, keeping us all connected with Zoom. So thank you, Mark. Behind me is Jack. So if you owe any money, or everyone should be paid up on their dues, Jack's back there. He's the treasurer. Is Kathy here? Kathy, our secretary. I thought Kathy was going to be here today, but I don't see her. Board members, our current board, we have a 7-member board. Any board members here? Keith's here. So Keith Jardine is one of the board members. Anybody else out there? Our board, Merle? Say that again? Yeah, and some of the officers, Jack, myself, Tina, and Merle, and Mark. So any committee leads out there? Tony's our apiary. Raise your hand, Tony. He's our apiary manager. Ed's back there. Where's Ed? Ed Sharp is our nuke. There's Ed, our nuke committee. Ray's back there. Ray is our citizen science. Raise your hand, Ray, for those of you citizen science, Ray. Walt, thank you, Walt, is our mentoring and apprentice committee lead. So anybody looking for a mentor, and he does a wonderful job with all the apprentice program, but our apprentice program's closed for the year, but you can get connected to mentoring. Rick is our new head of our AV and tech side, our live streaming stuff. So we're doing live streaming. So Rick is behind that. Anybody else? No. And I'm sorry if I'm missing. Ernie, woodworking, is sitting right up front. You should have spoken up, Ernie. Don't forget about Ernest. So he does our woodworking. So it's great. So if you're new and not that I recognize almost everybody here. So that's the way to get connected with the club. So if you're interested in doing stuff, get connected that way. Any brand new people or new? They consider themselves new in the last year. There's some faces I don't recognize. So if you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great. Oh, I got it. So we're just introducing new members. Mike, right? Yeah, Mike, new member, 2 miles south of Longwood. There's no beekeepers around there, is there? Sure. Hint, if you're looking for free bees, the Longwood area may be a good place to put a swarm box. It's been a crazy swarm year for sure. You know, I mean, I think because the nectar flow was so great in May that they a lot of bees were swarming in May. So if you're new to beekeeping, it's a great way to get bees. You know, just get a swarm box. Maybe we'll make some more next year and put them up. But all of it's a great area to catch bees. So, and there have been swarms this week, I think, you know, so we had one out at the apiary site. Somebody's hive along the back row swarm. The swarm was only about this big. So somebody's nuke box back there was in a tree, and we posted them in 2 hours. It was gone. So I don't know where it went, but anyway, welcome. Anybody else, please speak up if you're new. Yes.
I'm Eric. I've been with the club as a member for 2 years. But I've been beekeeping about 10, and I'm from Philly. I'm part of the Prolific Beekeepers Guild, much smaller group, but I appreciate your expertise. And I really benefited from your symposiums. So thank you.
Are you located in Philly?
I'm in Mount Airy.
Mount Airy, welcome. Garnet Valley Road, near me.
That's near me.
Don't know any beekeepers on.
That direction.
Yeah. There's a theme, right? If you're a new beekeeper, there's a way to get bees in Chester County, right? Put up a swarm box or two. Anybody else new?
I'm also new. I mean, this is my first year. No, you're fine. No, I'm not. This is my first year being with the first. I think it was a year ago. I had my son got me a flow hive.
Awesome.
Everyone's gonna be like, oh, but, or there are the people that are here. And then, because I went to the auction, and I was told after taking a couple of classes, that of course you needed 2 hives. So while at the auction, I bought another one, and then
Only one hive you bought at the
my
auction?
husband drove me away. So, needless to say, my son, thankfully was in, near Paradise yesterday and stopped by and got me a few more supplies and some Formic Pro, which I know I need. And I'm very close to, you might call it mine from last year. I'm very close to garden. I mean, Booth Win. Right off
Booth Win.
22, yeah.
There's no beekeepers there either. Any beekeepers here 322, Tony? And your name, I'm sorry? Heather, and I won't.
I'm right on the power line, so yeah, mine just could follow right up anywhere. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark, for carrying the mic around. Pat.
Pat Lafferty, my wife Stephanie. We live close to Longwood Gardens. I guess that's.
We're a mile north.
Great area for beekeepers.
We currently don't have bees. We plan on starting 2 hives in the spring. And we just joined a couple weeks ago.
And Pat and Stephanie volunteered to do the refreshments now. So I told you that. So I don't see Michael and Donna Held and Michael Held here. They've been doing it for how long, Keith? For 3 years. So we've all been sort of thankful for them, and that position opened up, and I put that out there, and Pat responded that him and Stephanie would do that. So please, the coffee is wonderful and the snacks are wonderful, and you know, it's a I don't have to say that the club is driven by the volunteers. Obviously, all of us are volunteers, and I really appreciate. I was a little worried that when I put that out there, nobody was going to volunteer, and then I would be responsible for setting up the snacks, which I could not do. So thank you so much for volunteering for that, and please, if obviously we have more snacks than people today, which is a good thing, but can't leave until they're gone, you know, and for the. For your calendar, just so people know, we're looking at September 25th as the day for the gala this year. So that's going to be, and we're not going to put a charge to that this year, I don't think. So September 25th, Saturday, September 25th is going to be the Bee Gala. And we're going to try to figure out how not to limit the people so we can make it a big party. So just put that on the calendar if you're interested in coming. It's always a sort of a fun event where Walt, I've changed the date, Walt, I didn't let you know yet. And Ed, I changed the date. I was trying to talk Ed into making a brisket. Walt always does the pig, and I didn't tell those 2 guys back there that I changed the date, but it's a funny story. I'm sitting around and I'm talking to somebody on the phone about the gala we were going to do it on September 9th. And she said, when did you talk to me about September 9th? And I said, I'm sure I talked to you about it. Anyone can relate, you know? And she said, no, you didn't. I said, it's September 9th. She said, that's not good. I said, okay. Anyway, so September 25th changed. No, the discussion over. Let's end it right there. I was wrong. I had never talk to you about this, and we'll move on. No, there's no fireworks this year, but anyway, it's always a good time. So September 25th. With that, let's move into officer reports really quick. Do I have anything to report on? What do I have to report on? Probably not much. The state of the club is good. We've had lots of people join over the pandemic. We've obviously invested a lot of money in this kind of stuff, you know, so the goal is to have this kind of stuff continue as we go in person to meet the needs of those people that don't want to sort of gather or we'll try and do stuff via Zoom. So the club now owns a bunch of cameras, a bunch of mics, a bunch of computers. So we'll continue to get more use out of that. So we've made a pretty significant investment in our technology. So just to let people know. And thankfully for Rick and Chris, who's not here today, and Mark, they have been the three people that have been behind that. We need more people to volunteer for that, because I always hate to call on the same three people all the time to sit behind the technology thing. So we do have a small team, but if you're really interested in that aspect of things, and you have some skill in there and are willing to sort of learn, I'm sure this is very basic for those people who really know what they're doing here. You know, we need the help, you know, so because we're trying to do more of this anyway. Enough said. Rick, anything you want to add to that?
You nailed it.
Just help out, you know, come.
Exactly. I mean, we're doing an awful lot of things. We're doing the beginner's course,
Right.
live streaming that. We're doing a live the hive at noon sharp on Mondays,
Mhm.
every other Monday. If, you know, events like this as they pop up. So I get stretched thin because I'm still working. I'm not retired yet, and this is what I do for a living. So it's I get a little cranky sometimes. So come help. You'll learn a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, and you know, this is the new way of doing things. I think even post-pandemic, we're going to be into the Zoom stuff a little bit, and I think we're going to eventually trying to push some more stuff out into the community about beekeepers and who we are and what we do. That's the goal, and I think that's going to be a good thing for all of us. As you know, we have a lot of beekeepers in Chester County, right? So that's probably a good thing, but it also comes with some risk, right? So it comes with the risk of a lot of swarms and a lot of bees in people's houses and that kind of stuff. So we want the public to continue to have like a good, you know, when they hear Chester County beekeepers, they say, oh, these are nice people and they take good care of bees and, you know, they do the right thing. So I'm trying to push more stuff out there to the public along those lines. So anyway, but we need people to help out. So if you're at all interested in doing any kind of that kind of work, talk to Rick. Excellent. So that's one thing. The other thing, what else do I have to report on? We are in the process, it's not formally signed yet, but we're in the process of working with Better Bee on something called a passport. So Daryl, who's head of education, has designed this sort of a passport. It looks like a passport, and it basically helps you sort of go through your beekeeping year. You know, you check off when you do certain things, and you know, it's sort of you check off when you do things. You kind of master skills. You check it off. It's got hive records in it. It's sort of designed for like the first or second year beekeeper to help them sort of learn what they need to do. And we sent the idea to Better Bee, and Better Bee was very, very, very interested in partnering with us. So that's gonna come out in 2022. Next spring will be the launch of that. So just to let people know that that's a huge feather in our cap for Chester County as sort of a local club, and we'll continue to get some recognition in the passport going forward. So there may be some need for people's input as we're in the sort of just in the beginning stages of sort of working collaboratively with them and putting a product out there that we're both happy with. So anyway, just to mention that we like Better Bee. They're a good company, and they seem to be working pretty well with us so far. So it's a good thing for the club. That's about all I got from a president report. Anything, Paul?
Yeah, just a couple of things to say to all those Longwood beekeepers. I have a couple of hives at Longwood because I am their beekeeper. So Longwood Gardens has 2 instructional hives that they keep to train the students. And there used to be a whole lot more students than there are now. With the pandemic, they had to let 100 people go. So right now they just have 9 horticultural students. They have a postgraduate class for a year in horticulture. And so of those 9 students, one of them became my assistant, and he learned a lot about beekeeping, and he was fun to have around and to help. So I have, like I said, 2 hives there, and I take the honey from them, as does Keith, like every week during May and June. And I have samples back there in that egg carton and a whole lot of toothpicks. So you're welcome to sample all the different honeys that I've taken from my hives this year. Keith and I think it's fun to take a broad palette of samples across the honey season. And you can see the differences in color and taste, and we think it's fun. So you're welcome to try that out. The other thing is Longwood did a video on me about a month ago. So if you look at the Longwood site, I think it's called Go Inside the Hives. There I am explaining what I do in a hive. You might think that's fun. That's so for some of the new people that don't know about it, the board of directors decided to have a grant program. So we instituted a grant program this past year. They decided to give 6% of our operating capital.
15%.
No, I don't think so. It came to $1,500.
No, 6,000. What's the percent that we give? Check with the money guy. I think it's 15% of our operating fund as of December 31st.
It came out to $1,500. So we gave away, oh, that's right. So we gave
4 grants.
up to $1,500. And we gave 5 grants this year. And they're not to be given to members of the club. Now, they can be given to people that members know, so the members can tell other people to apply for the grants. So if you have a deserving cause or person who you think would benefit from a grant, we are able to give out a little bit of money. And that starts in the new grant year will start in January and go through till April. And as of April 1st, we'll make a decision as to who gets the grants. Any questions about that? Yes.
Yeah, would that include high schools? Because we've been approached by high school science.
Yeah, we gave some money to Malvern Prep.
Okay.
They have a pretty active bee club, and they needed some funds to rebuild their program.
Yeah, and we gave to an
We gave
elementary
to
school
some,
too.
Girl Scouts. Oh yeah, elementary school, Garnet Valley, wasn't it?
Garnet Valley Elementary, we gave to
They
them.
had an excellent submission. And they were really on top of it. So very happy to help them out.
Yeah, so that's been great this year. And it's in the bio, it's in the Constitution, or it's somewhere now that it's 15% of whatever our general operating fund is as of December 31st goes to the grant program the following year. So, this year we had 40,000, so 6,000 of it went to the grant program. So if you know of anybody, right, that'd be great,
Yeah. Just can't be a member, that's all. That's all I have.
Anything, Mark?
Just real quick, if you order the brood binder equipment, I've got it here. The order did finally get here. US Postal Service only took 3 weeks to get it from Wisconsin to here. That's all. Only 3 weeks. It was pretty incredible.
Horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy. Yeah. Never mind.
United States Postal
I'll
Service.
just go from there. I think that's all I have for now.
Jack?
Okay, so quick treasurer's report. First, I'll do the membership. As of last night, thanks to the 2 members, one who joined yesterday and one who joined the day before, we have 561 primary members of the club. Those are the beekeepers. Another 127 associate members, which are family members living in the same household as a primary member. Just a reminder for those of you who are primary members, you can add any family member living in your house as an associate member at no cost. You can just go right onto the website and add those as an associate member. So that brings our total membership as of this morning to 688 members. On the finance side, we have, again, as of last night, about $41,600 in our general fund. So we're right about where we were as of the end of last year. Thanks to having spent the money that George talked about on the audiovisual stuff. We have $10,000 in our, just over $10,000 in our reserve fund. The primary reason for the reserve fund is the annual conference that we put on in March each year. We've had a couple of years where it has come very close to getting canceled at the last minute when we had paid a lot of money out to the venue, et cetera, that we were not going to be able to recover. So we need to have a reserve fund there in case that happens. And then we have our Save the Bee Fund, Save the Bees Fund, and that has another, as of right now, $12,810. So
Do you
That's
want to
it.
mention the
Yes.
expenses for
Justin.
I'd
that?
also like to request that people add as associate members, so when they try to join the Facebook forum, I do a quick search to make sure they're a member, because the board wants the Facebook CCBA forum to be for members only, to be truly local conversation. I'm always looking at people that say, yes, they're a member, they answer the join question, but they don't show up on the membership list. So there's either two things. You didn't add the associate member, or your membership profile defaulted to private status. So that's something to check too on the main CCBA webpage.
The private is not a default. So if
It's
they're,
not?
if they're, when you go onto the website, when you first join, or you can go on later, there's a privacy page where you can specify how much information about you want other people to see when they go to the membership directory, which, and some of you may not even be familiar with that. You can go to the membership directory and search by your zip code, see how many other members there are within 5 miles of you, 10 miles of you, whatever. And it shows a map, but it also, below the map, if you scroll down, it will list the members near you, but it will only list the information that member has chosen to be viewable by other members. You can limit it to just your name. You can add your email address, phone, etc. The default, I think, is name and email address only, but you can also choose not to view anything. The last time I checked, and it's been several months now, the last time I checked, out of the 500 plus primary members, there were only 3 who chose, I want no information shared with me about me on that directory.
But only members could see that list. The outside public could not see.
That is correct.
The reason I thought it was maybe default was because several people whose profiles they said were private didn't remember setting it to private or didn't know that setting. So I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that is not the default.
It's a great way to network with local beekeepers.
Absolutely.
If you're a brand new member, you can find people nearby to
Yep.
shadow and, maybe get a hand.
You want to mention
Yeah.
the expenses to Save the Bee Fund or not? The grant, the money we gave out of the Save the Bee Fund?
Yeah, we can do that. So separate from the grant program that Paul talked about, the whole purpose of the Save the Bee Fund, which for those of you who are newer don't know about, we had a longtime member, very valuable member to the club, very active both within the club and also at several of the DuPont estates. Peter Lintner, who, among other things, wrote the book Planting for Honeybees, or Garden Plants for Honeybees. Great book. It lists all plants that flower, whether it's trees to plants, listed by the month in which they bloom. And for every one of those, on a 5-star rating, it shows the value to honeybees of the pollen that plant makes and the nectar that is available to the bees. Peter passed away suddenly in March of 2018. The club decided to form this Save the Bees Fund in his honor and use that money to support public pollinator gardens and beekeeping efforts. And the board of directors, just at our meeting last month, gave $2,000 to each of 3 different organizations. One is Natural Lands, where we are today, for the work that they do and for the fact that they host us here. One was Springton Manor Farm, which you may be hearing more about in the future. We may be setting up an apiary there. And Bondsville Mill Park in Downingtown, which is, both of those are nature centers. And part of their objectives is to educate the public about the importance of pollinators. So $6,000 was given out of the Save the Bees Fund to those organizations. Any other questions?
And we have his pollinator board over there.
Yes, and one of the things that the Save the Bee Fund did early on was work with Cheslin. If you go down by the parking lot, there is a pollinator education board and provides housing for mason bees and other native bees right down there. And it has a plaque on it saying that it was dedicated, given by the CCBA to natural lands in memory of Peter Lindner. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So really trying to connect with our community more, doing those kind of things. So if people have ideas or other ways that we could connect more with our community and spread the sort of the good that we're trying to do as beekeepers, let us know, because we still have some money to spend in the Save the Bee account. So I saw Kathy show up. Hey, Kathy, you want to stay up? Kathy's our secretary. Anything to chat or report on? Anything?
Oh, no, I don't.
Thanks. That's okay. Anything by any of the committee leads really quick? Any Ed or Ray or anybody want to say anything to the membership today? I know I'm putting everybody on the spot, but nothing, Ed? Awesome. Keeps you going. Oh, yes. Tom, I forgot, you must have snuck in. I introduced all the committee leads earlier, and either I didn't see you or left you out, and that was not on purpose. So Tom's our beginner lead. So we do have a monthly beginners course, which is sort of, going over whatever is happening in the hives and teaching you. It's a group, and you can join in person or virtually, right? And that's still open. So if anybody wants to join, you can join in and sign up on the website.
We've had a nice group of people this year. I think we've learned a lot of things, and it's I'm enjoying the time with people. It helps, especially right now when we're getting into treating and everything, and just explaining to everybody how important it is. We don't want anybody to lose their bees or waste their money. I mean, we want it to be an enjoyable experience for you. If you have any questions or you'd like to be part of the group, talk to me.
So a couple of other things before we get into the educational piece. I have we had a great round of mated queens out at the CCBA apiary this month. So we had 36 mating boxes out there, and we had 30 mated queens out of the 36 mating boxes. So that's awesome return on the mating boxes. And there's three that are still unaccounted for. So if you're interested in a mated queen, they are from Frank Rutkowski's bees. He was the larvae donor. They are here, and they're selling for $30 a piece. And if you report, oh, there's a fourth one?
I kept her alive.
Joanne's got a fourth one. So if you're interested in taking home a mated queen, come see myself and give Jack $30. And if you report, right? So everyone who buys a mated queen, they all have a queen ID number on them. So it's awesome, actually. So how every queen has a unique number to it. So FR is Frank Rutkowski. That's the larvae donor. 6/13/21 is the grafting date. So that queen was grafted on 6/13/21. CC is the mating yard. So it was mated at Chester County's mating yard in box number 14. So they all have their individual unique ID number on it. And inside of the queen is a tag that has supposedly permanent ink on it that you can put on the front of your hive, and you can track that queen over time. And you can go on the queen page, and there's a little survey. It takes you 2 minutes. It asks it 1 month, is your queen alive or not alive? Pretty simple. And everyone can answer that question. And then they ask you a question about how many bees are in your hive, how many seams of bees, how many frames of cap brood are in your hive. That's relatively simple to figure out. And then it asks you subjectively, like, do you like this queen on a scale of 1 to 5? And if you fill that out 1 month after buying, and again in September, you'll get half your money back, or you'll get credit, not back. You'll get a credit to your CCBA account. So anyway, it's a lot of work that goes into this, honestly, but we have it down pretty good right now. And the hope is that, there's a lot of, I'm talking for Steve, but Steve's not here today anyway, because he leads the queen program. we're trying to do local stock. So we're trying to get local stock and graft from local stock and get local stock in people's hives. So ideally, eventually what will happen is like, if people report, we have records on all these queens, people reporting, and then we can start to select which hives sort of seem to be the most productive from a bee standpoint, or have the most cap brood, or subjectively you just like. Again, this is our citizen science, one of our citizen science projects, where we're trying to have you as the beekeeper help us with data to make decisions on what to graft from. Are we there yet? No, we're not even close to being there yet, but this is only our second year on this sort of journey. So I think we're getting better, but we need your help with this. And so there you go. There's 4 queens here. If anybody would need to mate a queen. And Joanne's going to need some data from you if you buy them today, probably. Yes.
This is the first year, this is interesting. This is the first year, for those of us who are licensed and inspected to sell bees, you know, people contact us to buy bees. This is the first year I've had multiple people just wanting to buy a queen to start a colony. They think honeybees are like the native pollinators where only queens overwinter. They bumblebees, where if you buy one queen, you start a colony like wasps and hornets.
Interesting.
And I thought that was fairly amusing this year that they thought they could start a colony
By just getting a queen? Interesting.
Has anybody else had that?
They can try, right?
Yeah, first year.
George, did you say anything about our new report card you got from the?
Oh, I didn't. I don't like to, you know. Chris is saying like to mention our report card. So I'll mention it because, you know, we should be proud of it. We sent 5 of our queens on round 2 down to NC State, Dave Tarpey's lab. And that's a great lab, honestly. And they're very friendly there. So if you ever want to send bee samples to a lab, NC State lab, and they do all kinds of testing. And it's not that expensive, because I asked, like, how are you, they tested a queen for like $24. So they measured the queen. They did all kinds of, and they looked at how viable the sperm was, and the percent of sperm that was whatever. They did a whole bunch of stuff, and they're charging. I said, you can't even get somebody to take a queen out of a mailbox for $24 nowadays. You know, those of you in academics know what I'm talking about. You know, the overhead's $240 before you even start your project. Anyway, that's an inappropriate comment, but sorry.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah, so it's a great lab, and it's so cheap. So if you want to send bees for a viral sample or test your queens, you know, look into, anyway. So we send 5 queens down there, and our queens got 2 scores. So they got a score on morphology, basically their size, you know, how well they were basically, basically measures how well your starter finisher colony is, you know, the size of your queens. And our queens rated an A for size, morphology. And then they rated an A- for the quality of their insemination, just because we had one that was a dud. She actually laid in the mating box, and she was a dud. So we got an overall score of A- on our queens, and they're compared to like a national sample of queens. So our queens are really decent. So anyway, it's good work that we're doing, and we're learning how to produce good quality queens. I think it's a journey, right? You know, I mean, and everybody can produce good queens. I mean, you don't need us to produce good queens. You can produce good queens yourself. You know, some of the best queens are made by swarm queens, right? So if your hives, if you got a little bit behind on your swarm management and they have swarm cells in there, they're the best queens that you can make. And really quick, just while we're on it, this is all we're using this year. So it's really simple. All you need to make queens is basically a nuke box. This is thanks to Chris Sim. So just a standard 5-frame nuke box. And we use 2, actually, this was a good idea. We have 2 follower boards that sit in the middle here. We have sort of, well, there's no screens on this one, but there's supposed to be screens on the bottom. And there's a ventilation hole and a ventilation hole and an entrance hole. And we just have two frames and 2 frames. And then what's neat about the 2 follower boards is, like, you could take, if you can't find the queen, you could take 1 follower board out, because oftentimes the queen's on this side or on this instead of on the frame, and there's still one box, 1 frame in there, 1 follower board. So these are working really nice, and you can go, this is just a simple nuke kit sold at Ike, you know, a budget nuke kit, and these are just follower boards sold at Ike. So, I mean, it's really hard to, go ahead, Chris, you want to comment? Yeah, there's a little shim on the bottom just in case there's they're making some queen cells on the bottom that you don't squish queen cells, because if you don't put that shim on there, if they're making queen cells and you put them in this box, you'll just squish them. So you know, this is anybody can do this. So we sell these new kits always in the spring, you know, so people can have new kits, and you could take a new kit and make it into your own mating box. So it's really simple. So if anybody wants to, any other tips on this, Chris? Yeah, so we use burlap. The burlap, we also have burlap back there free. So to cover the top, but you don't really need to either. You can sort of do it without cover. So anyway, you'll hear more about this next year, but this is just a plug. I mean, you don't need us to raise your queens. We like raising queens and we like making queen cells, but everybody in the club can make a queen, right, Ray? That's what Ray tells me. Is like, you know, we gotta. I had these half frames last year. I love them. I still like my half frames. We were running maiden boxes with 2 half frames, so it was only 1 frame of resources. And I thought to myself, well, this is smart. I only need 1 frame of resources. Less resources can make more queens. And they worked, but I have to say, well, I'm not sure what to say. I like my half frames, but again, the reason for this is that you don't need a half frame. You don't need anything fancy. You can just go ahead and buy a nuke box and raise a few queens, and that's the goal. You know, we need to do a better job still of educating people how to do that, and we'll do that next season, because queen season's almost over. Honestly, trying to make queens right now is not easy. You know, past the June 21st, they don't make the cells as well. You know, there's not as many drones. I mean, we're fighting nature a little bit and making queens right now, but we'll go into more of this next year. So that's as complicated as you need anyway. Yeah, unfortunately, I just grabbed one that didn't have screen on it, you know. Yeah, and then we have a little interest disc on the front. Yeah, just number 8 hardware cloth is all we use to screen. You know, anyone? We've sold mating boxes in the past. Any disc on the front? Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 I think it's 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch. I forget what the depth of that shim is, but you're right, Justin. I mean, it's just the attached bottom. Yeah. Yeah, but we were making a solid bottom for the mating boxes, so I forgot to add the shim. Anyway, cool. Wood's expensive now, so wait a little bit before buying your woodenware. The wood's probably going to come down in the next couple of months. I don't know if the prices are going to come down, but wood should come down. While we're on sales, really quick, there's one of the members has brought Jim, right? Yeah. Oh my goodness, my brain's not failing. Jim has brought a great Ultra Breeze large suit for sale today. So I think he paid $250 new, and he's looking for $195 for something that's been worn once. So it's a great Ultra Breeze suit if you are a large and you want to be in comfort I've been looking at this because I don't have a full suit and I'm getting tired of getting stung in my legs, actually. So I'm thinking like, maybe that's for me. But if I come home with another expense, my wife will probably not be happy.
I only wore it once, but it was too large for me, but I had got propolis on it, so I didn't want to return it to the company for a meeting.
And we have and Jim also brought this uncapping knife. I don't know if it works or not. He's not sure, but it's free. So the first person up here in break who takes it off the table gets it, you know. So I'll just leave that there. The other things we got is we got on the back table, we got burlap too. So thanks to Lynn. Is Lynn here? I didn't see Lynn. Lynn Arnold goes somewhere in Chester, God bless her, to some warehouse in Chester and gets free burlap sacks that had coffee in them. So they're basically unused. They transport coffee from Brazil or something like that. So they smell like coffee. So they're back there and they're free. So if you want, they're great smoker fuel. So if you want, yeah, Keith is, I'll get you a bag, Keith. So you cut them up and you put them in smoker and they last forever, you know, actually. So I've had my smoker last over an hour with burlap.
This is food burlap. What burlap should you be wary of that might be treated to prevent rodent chewing on them? There's certain burlap that is. How do you know the difference?
I have no idea.
This helps too, so I think it's clean burlap, but there are some burlap
That are not good.
can be treated to prevent.
One of the whole flower bowl.
Kind of whole flower bowl. They're treated daffodils and stuff like that. Okay. They'll be treated. Okay.
Does anybody else have anything else for sale today that they want to get rid of that I didn't mention? No. You got anything for sale? No. Maggie? Nothing? No. I like your hat though. Okay, so now we're going to get on to mites. A little bit of education around mites. Anyone have thoughts on mites? You think they're bad? They suck? Any other thoughts on mites? You got any thoughts on mites, Howard? You think they're lower levels? How do you know they're lower levels? Because you test. So let's raise your hand if you've ever tested for mites. Wow. Raise your hand if you've never tested for mites. Tony. So that doesn't make Tony a bad beekeeper by any means. So there's different ways to go about doing this. So mites are for those that I'm speaking to the people that know and are aware of this, but mites kill hives basically. And you know, the way mites kill hives is that they transmit viruses. And I don't know, Justin, how many viruses the mites have? 14 viruses, Jack says. So there's 14 known viruses that are transmitted. And none of these viruses, I think, are any good for bees. So the mites transmit viruses and the viruses kill colonies in the winter. And I don't know, the colonies will start to die, like really heavily infested colonies will start to die, I think, in October or November, and then the rest of them will sort of struggle through the winter and die at some point through the winter. As Justin said, there's mites in every hive, right? So there's probably not one hive that doesn't have a mite in it in Chester County, you know? And we were joking about, when you think about your apiary, you may as well draw a 1 mile radius circle around your apiary. And every hive that's sort of within that 1 mile radius is also in your apiary, essentially. So in Chester County, when the average person does that, they probably have, I don't know, 10 or 15 other beekeepers within that 1 mile radius. So all those hives are considered in your apiary because the bees will kind of visit other hives and go to other hives. And even though they came from your hive, they end up in other hives and they may come back to your hive. So all the viruses and mites that are sort of within that extended apiary can be shared with your hive. And that's one of the challenges of being a beekeeper in Chester County is that your hives are going to be impacted based on the beekeepers around you. And every hive has mites. So there's basically two ways to anyone ever done an alcohol? Anyone really feel good about an alcohol wash? Their skill level in an alcohol wash? Come on, anyone want to come help me? Come on. Now I'm going to save you for later, Ed, because you're going to come up with Mike. You done alcohol wash? Come on up. So we're going to go over it. Mike and I are going to go over an alcohol wash. Oh my goodness. So I don't have bees here, but we're going to pretend we have bees, Mike. Come stand next to me. So how long you been beekeeping, Mike? A couple years. Second year. So gonna go over how to do an alcohol wash, hopefully, and go over the steps of how to do it. So you go up to your hive, and what do we need to do an alcohol wash, Mike?
Need to get in to find your brood,
You need to find the brood.
young uncapped larva.
Uncapped.
Larva. Get a bunch of nurse bees.
So the first thing you need to do is get the right kind of bees for your alcohol wash. So the right kind of bees are bees on brood frames generally. So you're going to try to find the brood frames in your hive, and you're going to get bees off of them. So how are you going to get bees off your brood frame?
Pull your frame out. We'll take them, you're gonna shake them into a tub.
So you got this nice
Yeah.
Tupperware tub right here, something like this, and you're going to either shake, or I learned from Justin recently, you can brush them too. So this tool that gets underutilized, there may be a reason to use this when you're doing mite monitoring, which we'll get back to in a second. So you're going to take some bees and either shake them in the tub or brush them in the tub, right? And I missed the step. I was going to get to that. The queen may be in there. Not good. So you probably don't want to alcohol wash or sugar roll your queen, right? So surely that would be a step that you would do before doing that. And your queen is going to be on your brood frames generally, unless you for some reason have a queen that decided to wander off the brood frame. She's generally on a brood frame. So a good reason to mark your queens is so they're easily found, but you don't want to shake your queen into there. Okay, so now you got a bunch of bees. You could do, some people do more than one frame. I don't think that's really necessary. I think if you do one frame, that's probably enough. So you got your bees in there, right? Yes, Howard.
I've noticed a lot of my frames where the brood is, most of the bees, there are a few bees where the brood is, but most of the bees are on the honey.
Right now.
Up there. Are those bees, are okay to be tested?
I think at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter too much. I think Randy Oliver studied this, where he sort of shook bees off different frames and looked at the mite levels on where the bees were on the brood or on the honey, and the mite levels were slightly higher on the brood and more representative from those frames than the honey frames. But at the end of the day, if your mite count's really high, it probably doesn't make a difference where you're taking the bees from. But I'm willing, Ed.
You're gonna find it's been documented that you'll find more phoretic mites on the nurse bees.
Okay.
Where are the nurse bees?
On the brood. Right. So that's why we're shaking brood-related frames.
Okay, rule number one, it must be unsealed brood, not just brood, unsealed brood. Okay, brood.
Open brood.
Fat larvae, that's what the mites are gonna try to go hide in before they cap it. The big open larvae is, you'll get Randy said you'll get the highest mite count on fat open larvae frames, the worst case scenario. That's what I teach.
That's-
the example from, Mike will get the worst numbers, right?
Yeah, get the worst, get the highest numbers in the hive, right? So
It's just ready to be sealed too, so they're right there to jump in.
so they're smart mites, right? So they're the ones that let's jump into the brood that's ready to be sealed. So you're going to pick a frame of fat, nice white larvae, hopefully that you're going to shake your bees from. And then when you shake the bees in here, I usually stir them up a little bit, and then whatever foragers are left in there are going to fly back to the hive, and then hopefully you're going to have a whole bunch of nurse bees that are left in this container, right? So what do you do next, Mike?
Get a half a cup of bees.
Oh, Mike knows his stuff. So
I usually just bang them all down, fill it back in there.
half a cup,
Half cup.
right? So
Half cup.
bang them into the corner, scoop. So you got a half a cup of bees, which is how many bees? Well, I see. We don't need to do this tonight. 300 bees. I always like do a full cup. I don't know. Some of you just a small cup, whatever. A big rounded cup, right? If you really want to know how many bees are in there, I guess you could, after you, whatever, you can measure them. So you get 300 bees, and then you're going to put them into, well, this is the CCBA sort of mite sort of washer. So you're going to put 300 bees into there. And then you're going to have 300 bees in there with a with a screen in it. The club has a bunch of these for sale today for $7. If you want to get this, you could also buy different things online for more expensive. They all kind of work the same, honestly. So we sell these at cost. So they're $7. If you don't have a mite washer and want a mite washer, they're back there, and give Jack $7. So you're going to take these bees, and then what are we going to use to wash the, what are we going to use to wash the mites off of bees?
Alcohol.
Alcohol.
91%.
So 91% sort of the gold standard for your mite wash. What are your other options? Everclear. Anything else? 70% alcohol?
Dawn detergent.
Dawn detergent. So you can find on somewhere online the Dawn detergent option, which is, I forget, 2 tablespoons of
What?
Dawn detergent
Yeah,
in a
2
gallon
tablespoons per gallon. Yeah.
of water to make a bluish sort of wash. So you got winter wiper fluid that has a lot of alcohol in it to dissolve ice. So you have a couple. Yes, Howard?
I'd like to hear people who successfully use the Dole as how they deal with stuff.
It's great.
I have trouble all the stuff, even though I put some acid.
Yeah, but the mites go to the bottom. Yeah.
I added some Mylanta. So if you get Mylanta anti-gas and just add a drop of Mylanta or 2 drops of Mylanta through the liquid gel caps, it stops the suds from when you shake it up. Stop it from foaming. Thankfully, this is a group educational event because I only know so much. So there are your options. Again, as far as what the gold standard is for wash, it's probably 91% isopropyl alcohol, which is back on the shelves at Target and Walgreens for about $2.30. So anyway, so that's that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this and pour it into here. And then for this one, you have to, when you put the mite washer in, you got to open the lid just a little bit, not to let the bees out, but so the air, right? And you want enough alcohol. Well, that's not quite enough alcohol to cover the bees. So you want to have enough alcohol in there so the bees that are in the cup are completely covered. So now what do you do?
Shake or swirl for about a minute.
Shake or swirl. Mike is on top of it. We have some good beekeepers, right? Swirl. Right. So we swirl for a minute, right? We swirl for a minute. So you just sit there and you swirl for a minute. Usually this time of year, I try to do mite levels on my hives. So basically, I always carry this with me. And when I find a brood frame that doesn't have a queen on it, I'll just shake some bees in there. And then as I'm moving, I'll just scoop the bees in there and add alcohol. So it's really doesn't take that much extra time into a hive inspection. Now, if you're inspecting 100 hives, that's a different story. But if you have 3 to 5 hives, this isn't really that much more time to do a mite level.
One of the things I do is after I shake the bees into the tub, I use a bit taller tub. I'll go about my business finishing my hive inspection before I even address the bees or the tub. Then once I'm done, I'll do my scoop, my white wash, dump the rest of the bees right at the entrance, check, and then go to the next hive and do the same thing. So I don't stop what I'm doing with my inspection after I give my shake. They go about my business, do the white wash, go to the next hive.
Yeah. So it really does kind of just work into your
Yeah.
normal inspections of your hives. Yeah, the nurse bees will stay in the tub. The other reason to maybe leave the bees in the tub is because your forager bees will fly back out of the tub, but your nurse bees will just sit there.
I generally do the swirl for 60 seconds, but several times count the mites. Several times after I counted the mites the first time, then I aggressively shook it to see if I can shake any more of this.
Got it.
And I get a couple more.
So shake good.
I have a question. Does it matter the order that you do it, generally what I do is I have the alcohol and I have the basket in there and then I dump them in and then so, okay.
That works too,
Okay.
as long as the bees meet the alcohol at some point.
Oh, yeah, they need it fast.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it really makes any difference. I guess you just kind of do whatever works in your workflow in your hives. So you're gonna do this for a minute and then you're gonna take take this out. You're gonna shake all the alcohol out of the bottom of it. And you're gonna look at the bottom of your cup and count the number of mites. Now, what do mites look like? Anyone want to describe what a mite looks like? Sesame seed. Yeah, I sort of say like a reddish brown sesame seed, about the size of a sesame seed that's reddish brown color. Until you see a bunch of them, sometimes it's hard because you'll get debris that falls in there too. You'll get like parts of mite legs and I mean bee legs and other kind of crap that's in the hive that'll float to the bottom. So debris. So it helps to sort of, do this a bunch and then you count how many mites and then what do you do? So say if I had 6 mites in here, what's my mite percent? 2, right? Divide by 3. So you're trying to figure out how many mites per 100 bees. So whatever your total mite count is, you divide by however many mites you got on the bottom of your cup, you divide by 3, and that's going to give you your percent of infestation in your hive. Yes, Justin.
One time I did do a bunch of wiper fluid washes.
Mhm.
I had mites that sank and mites that floated, but I don't recall if those samples were with summer fluid, washer fluid or winter. Later someone told me, make sure you use the winter because it has higher alcohol content, but I don't think it's as high as 70 or 90%. So might as well just stick with alcohol, but that was an instance where mites did float and mites did sink. So that was pretty odd.
Yeah.
Dawn, do they float and sink?
It would be hard to tell if there's anything floating
Floating.
because of the suds. But
No, Dawn, that's one of the reasons Dawn was one of the selected, because they are sinkers. Obviously, if you do white wash in water, mites will float. But, the higher the alcohol content, and Dawn, whatever it uses to bust through the grease, is also, accelerates the sinking of the mites.
So I'll pour the alcohol back in a container and then the little bit that sits at the bottom with the mites in it just gets tossed. And then the bees, the 300 bees, they get tossed too.
You can also get a little strainer from the dollar store about the size of a big coffee mug. You can pour your fluid through that, it'll catch all the mites through a funnel and reclaim your alcohol.
Yeah, that would be yeah. So the unfortunate thing about an alcohol wash is that you kill 300 bees in the process. So the 300 bees that were soaked, that were rinsed, that washed in alcohol are now dead. So you need to get rid of them probably. So you're sacrificing 300 bees to get a mite level in your hive.
At what point do you treat?
Okay, so that's the next question. So why do these levels to begin with, right? Because what you're trying to do with the levels is determine what the infestation rate of the hive is. So the question is what level do you treat, or should you treat irregardless of your level, right? So we've already established that every hive has mites, and what level should you treat at? I think it depends on, the mite levels are going to increase starting in July, and if your mite level is 1% in July, it'll probably be 2-something% in August, and it'll probably be 4% in September, and then your bees will be dead in December. So the earlier in the season, you're likely to treat at a lower number. So right now, I would say that anything over 1% would warrant treatment at this point. So if anything over 1% or over three mites per 300 bees in July would probably necessitate treatment. In August, you may go up to 2% as a level. What's the advantage of doing these mite counts? You're going to say, well, the other option is everyone treats in July, everyone treats in September, and everyone treats in December. So generally, people that treat 3 times a year, their bees generally live, because you're knocking your mite counts down 3 times. And historically, we've done a treatment in middle of July, a treatment in early September, and a treatment in December. And you're not really going to care what your mite counts are, because you're just going to knock them down and you're going to keep them low. And if you knock them down and keep them low, your hives survive. So that's another option that you can do. But right now, I would say for those, what's the downside of that option? The downside of that option is expense. So, you may be treating hives that don't need to be treated, and you're potentially missing hives that may be able to sort of keep their mite counts low without your intervention. Because that's the holy grail, right? That's what we want. We want hives that are able to manage their mites in some way, whether or not they bite them and kill them, or uncap the brood. I mean, or kill the brood that has mite infestations, or some way they keep the mites low. And if you universally treat all your hives, you're going to potentially miss those hives that are able to do that. Now, do those hives exist? I guess it depends on who you, I guess they do exist, but they're a minority of the hives. Yes, Keith.
The main problem is that the 2 bee strains that are tolerant did exactly the opposite. They were able to manage huge volumes of rows. So maybe we're looking at it through the wrong area. So the ones that are truly the capensis and scutellata, they manage huge numbers, most numbers ever recorded, that they're able to cope with it. So by having the least, we wouldn't have chosen the ones that
Are able to deal with it?
So in reality, it might be a bit different.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. But we wouldn't recommend anyone with high mite counts just to leave their bees sort of see if they survive or not right now. So, I mean, you're correct. Yes, Tony.
The more hives that have varroa, I mean, if they're able to withstand it, would still spread it to everybody else's bees, so still want to really treat them.
Well, not if they're dying out. If they have high mite numbers but still surviving, they're not dying out to get robbed or to disperse the remaining bees to the surrounding hives that can maybe carry the mites with them. I hear what you're saying, but if those hives are surviving, then how are the mites going from the surviving hive to other surviving hives?
Well, they're carrying them to other people's hives, too, as well, in the area. If we're all beekeepers, you might have type that will survive mites, so if you don't treat, they're gonna get spread to everybody else's hives.
I think what Justin's saying is that his hive is strong, so your bees aren't going to
They're not dispersing to other people's hives. Like, here's an example. One hive last year, sugar roll, 115 mites. 2 months prior, I only got 6. Treated with formic acid, had a really good knockdown, strongest hives coming out of windows. So it's one of those cases where he's saying where they can somehow manage higher mite loads. I don't know if it's due to a better immune system, maybe there's some storage in the area they're able to utilize, maybe it's genetics, I don't know.
or maybe that hive was not going to make it. You don't know.
True, but say it still has a high mite number.
Right.
Those mites are staying in that hive because those bees are alive and the colony's going strong. They're not going anywhere.
But we're not entertaining the idea that treating lessens their mite resistance, are we?
I wasn't indicating that, but Keith was mentioning that just selecting on low mites misses some of the genetics that might handle higher mite loads and survive by some other means we're not familiar with. That's why I always suggest, I ask my treatment-free friends, do mite counts and participate in citizen science, whether you treat or not. It's way to get data and we can say, if you have over 30 mites, yes, your hive's gonna die, or some colonies die, some don't. But without everybody participating, our data is really limited to only basically those people who do treat and do mite count. So the data is very skewed, but the people I know in the treatment-free community are very reluctant to just do mite counts just to know anyway, because it's too much time.
Too much time.
Bees are worth the time. Everybody knows this hobby takes up a lot of time. It's worth the extra time.
Yes, Ed.
we could be dealing with parasitic mite syndrome also. It's been parasitic mite CMS
Mhm.
could be, it's been documented that you can have a lot of mites, but without the viruses, you don't have a problem,
Mhm.
or vice versa.
So it takes both.
We can't mention the virus.
No, we don't know what mites have viruses or what virus loads are in the hives. And we don't know if they're all transmitted by mites or some of them may be transmitted by B2B contact too. So it's complicated. Yes, George.
If I were to get some guidance to a new beekeeper 1 or 2 years into it, just treat. You're almost guaranteed to have mites. Why have your head spinning around trying to figure this out? They're there, treat them. Even if you have good, strong bees, they're gonna be able to handle them. Let's kill as many mites as we possibly can. That would be my guidance to any new beekeeper.
Thanks, George. Any other thoughts? Yes.
So at the scale of my home apiary, I only have 10 hives there at present. And so I test all the hives, I just did a few days ago. And only had on the cusp there, 1 hive, right? And I know Honeybee Health Coalition is saying, treat them all. And it seems like if I'm testing them all, is that really necessary? I mean, I'd like to just treat that hive. The others are all like 1, 2 mites, and that's for 300, so, just small.
So the Honeybee Health Correlation is saying if one hive meets threshold, then treat all your hives at your apiary site.
You know, the second year we had hive, we treated 11 straight weeks with oxalic acid patient, and the counts kept going up. And the conclusion, that's the key, was that our bees were going out and getting polluted by other hives that collapsed. So I think we have, we've already made up our mind, we treat no matter what. So I still think the guidance for the beekeepers is treat. You can monitor if you're so inclined to do that. But let's make it simple and get through the first couple of years.
With alive bees.
Yeah.
Yes, treatment is going to more.
Not the super zone.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a
And I
second.
disagree with that.
We'll get to that in a second. Yes.
So are we not recommending our population, our community to treat, to, by a certain date, we should start treating our mites? Are we not doing that anymore?
So the question, so you could hear, is in the past, we've sort of made a recommendation that the CCBA treat on July, that everyone treat on July 15th, and then again, probably treat on September 1st. And I'm saying that is one acceptable way to do it. For those of you who don't want to do that and who want to do mite levels and are willing to do mite levels on all your hives and sort of keep track of the mite levels and treat based on those mite levels, that's acceptable too. If you're not going to do mite levels and you're just going to, then you're probably better off treating on July 15th, September 1st in the middle of December. So.
But the thinking of the whole club doing it on the same day, because we're widely dispersed throughout Chester County and environs, that if everybody treated on the same day, we would wallop them throughout the county. So that was the prevailing thought, and I think you should still do it. I will be doing it on July 15th.
So
It's a bit of a I guess I'd say controversial topic. So yes, Justin.
Well, I like his advice to new beekeepers, plan on treating, because that's the norm, because honeybees are an agricultural livestock. Animal husbandry takes care of your livestock. They're not part of our native ecosystem. They're livestock. If we can get the mentality to think of them that way, maybe people will take care of them more, better. We're bee farmers. That's what we're doing.
Any other thoughts? This is worth spending a moment or two to get everyone's opinion out there, because they're two different approach. The third approach is to do nothing. And I think, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that was the prevailing approach, like, we don't really need to take this that seriously. And there was a lot of people doing nothing for their mites, or there was still discussion. And now we've learned so much about mites. We know that mites are bad and they transmit bad viruses. So we need to do something. It's just a question of what to do. Do we do universal treatment on a schedule, or do we do selective treatment based on mite levels? They're two different approaches. Yes.
As a new beekeeper, 2 questions. What's better, alcohol or sugar roll?
Alcohol. We're going to get to a sugar roll in a second, but maybe the way Justin does a sugar roll, they're equivalent. But generally, people think you're going to wash about 30% more mites off this than off a sugar roll.
So you're gonna end up with a bigger mite.
You're going to end up with a bigger mite count with an alcohol wash than a sugar roll.
Those bees for sugar roll does not.
Correct.
Wait, who has ever tested powder sugar rolled bees to see if they recover?
Well, we know
Justin
that.
has. Of course he has.
We know that. So basically the sugar roll, for those of you, since we're on it for a second, so it's the same process where you put the bees in this. Justin has taught me that you brush the bees instead of shake the bees off, because you don't want a lot of wet nectar on the bees for a reason that I forget, but you don't want a lot of wet nectar on the bees. So you brush the bees off the frame, still half a cup into this, but instead of filling the thing with alcohol, you're going to fill the thing with 2 things of powdered sugar. So you basically take your hive tool, is it 2 tablespoons? And you basically take this, 2 big scoops on your bees. So you take some powdered sugar, you brush it on and you basically.
Yeah, the powder helps dislodge the mites. So if you're shaking the bees off and you're shaking nectar off of them, you're wetting the mites, so the powder's not gonna get to the mites and dislodge them. And then also, another good tip I was given was try to do your sugar rolls on days where the humidity is 70% or less. Just as if you were painting something. If you're painting your hive boxes, almost every paint instructions say humidity below 70%. So use that rule of thumb for the days that you do your.
So you shake a few, you roll them for a minute,
I cover the screen end and then you actually roll it, tumble them for a minute.
and then you let them sit there for 3.
I'll lay it on the side, just like the Honeybee Health Coalition says, lay it on the side, let them rest for 3 minutes. I put them in the shade because if you put them in the sun and they overheat, if bees have anything in the honey crop to try to cool off, they'll expel everything in their honey crop and will also wet the sample and disrupt what the powdered sugar does. You let it sit for 3 minutes, let the powdered sugar work themselves around, they start grooming, they actually heat themselves up, they're a little bit agitated, they want to get the sugar off them, and that's what helps dislodge the mite.
Right. And then you basically take this and shake it onto something white, like a paper plate,
For a minute,
shake them out,
be consistent.
and then you spray it down if you want to spray it down to dissolve the powdered sugar, and then you count your mites.
Yeah, and then you do that again. The Honeybee Health Coalition says you do that 2 times. You add another tablespoon of powdered sugar to it, do the whole thing again, and you will get some more mites. That's another reason a lot of people get inaccurate sugar rolls, because they only do it once. But the Honeybee Health Coalition website says to do it twice. And yes, it does take longer, but you're not killing the bees. Randy Oliver is doing a study, and the preliminary result is like a week after the sugar roll, most of the bees are still alive. Another thing that helps kill less bees is when you're shaking them out, every so often just tap it to put the bees on the opposite side of the screen and shake them again, because it's the bees that get stuck in the screen that keep getting walloped that end up dying. So if you knock them down, you want to rotate your cup and shake them out. I use a quart jar, there's more space, quart jar with an 8 mesh lid. But yeah, knocking the bees down, so it isn't always the same bees on the bottom, that the whole pile is hitting as you shake it out.
So that's the second way to look at doing a mite level, is by the sugar roll.
Sugar roll, the alcohol, no question.
There's no question the 300 bees are dead. When you take the 300 white coated, sugar coated bees and put them on the top bars of the frames, they do disappear. So they look like little mini.
There's often a couple that got crushed.
Oh.
You're gonna lose some, but you're
Yeah.
not gonna lose 300.
So that's your other option. So alcohol wash, sugar roll once a month is generally acceptable.
The only two approved methods
of doing mite counts. Questions about,
One other question.
sure.
There seems to be, I'm new, but there seems to be a lot of different opinions as to, okay, this hive only had 2 mites, I'm not going to treat it. This hive had 8 mites, I'm going to treat it. What's the negative aspect of treating your bees?
All the bees?
Huh?
Just universally treating all the bees on a schedule, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, in other words, when you treat the bees, you do something to the honey with the poison you're using, you do something with the bees that are alive in there that may not be sick. I mean, what, in other words, we're treating bees because we know they have mites, but are we polluting the honey at the same time? Even though it's organic treatment, you know what organic means, that means bullshit. Sorry.
It just means carbon based, that's all it means.
Yeah, whatever. There's a lot of things out there that are organic that'll kill you instantly, so be careful with organic. Cyanide is organic, don't play with it.
So yeah, so
So we're treating all these bees for something we know will harm them, but at the same time, we're harming the bees and or polluting the honey. And then we have this gentleman over here was saying there's hives that survive with the mites. Maybe they're learning something and we're killing them, even though they're learning how to deal with the mites.
anyone want to take a
I'm new,
Yeah,
so
you can,
I'm questioning all this. I understand.
no, absolutely. Your questions are right on target, actually,
yeah,
you
if
know?
you give chemical stresses to your hive, there's a likelihood that you'll lose some brood. There's a likelihood that you could use a queen. Some methods are better than others in that outcome. If you're worried about contaminating your honey, you take the supers off and treat. Or if I use oxalic acid, I'll just take the supers off, put a foam board on top of my upper deep, and then put the supers back on for convenience of the bees. Then I can treat with oxalic acid vapor. It doesn't go up into the supers and I'll be free and clear. I like oxalic acid vapor because it's kinder and gentler, to my mind, to the bees. And I've never seen a queen die. I wouldn't know if I have any brood fall off, but they seem to tolerate it very well.
And we're going to get the treatments in a bit of an individual treatment. So yes, Ed,
Take a shot
at the question.
answer your question. And this doesn't necessarily reflect my personal opinion, but you have a cost all the time. Oxalic acid is pennies, but the rest of the pesticides, you will, that you're going to use, the miticides, going to cost you $5 plus for treatment. You have the inconvenience, which you have to often work on a nice hot day. The other thing is what we're doing, and this is a responsibility. You talked about managing or being responsible. But what happens is when they actually go in and test the comb, the honeycomb, the wax, a lot of it is beekeeper pesticides that are going in there that are being found. Not necessarily what the farmers are applying, but what we as beekeepers are applying to control our pests are showing up in the wax. And eventually that wax gets passed on down. Contamination. Overall, there are some downsides to applying miticide when you don't need to. The question is, do you need?
Can I add on to that? A lot of those chemicals, the studies I've read, that they found in the residual wax, 2 of the big ones are Kumafos and Flubal. Checkmite and Tactic, I think.
No,
Checkmite and
Apistatin.
well, there was two miticides that got off the market for quite a while,
Is a prometheus.
and they recently got back on the market. And these miticides, these strips with flubalinate and then the other one, the Kumafos, I forget what their brand names are called. They're back on the market again, and those two do leave residues in the wax. And I'm told by these studies that the residue of amitraz in the comb is due to commercial beekeepers applying amitraz in liquid form at like over 10 times the dosage recommended in commercial operations. And at a Rutgers study, I talked to the guy. You want to make a comment on this? And he said the recorded levels were due to commercial contamination or way overdosing. But These two products that are back on the market, I'm not sure they're back on the market when we know they contaminate soil with the chemicals and fluvalin.
Well, Kumafos has an extremely long half.
Yeah.
Mike, there's one other downside to treating for mites, and that is particularly with some of the miticides that beekeepers used in the past that are no longer available or no longer recommended, is the mites actually build up a resistance to that chemical over time. They evolve to deal with that chemical. So continuing to treat with the same chemical or treating when it's not necessary has that potential downside as well.
I'm hearing a lot of negative aspects as far as treating, we're polluting the wax, which is polluting the honey, and it's passed on to the next generation.
All of us would love to never have to treat our bees for mites. That's the ideal situation, but unfortunately, there's enough good, solid scientific information out there that it's rare for a hive to be so strong that it can deal with the mites and without
You're always using
treating.
risk to benefit. Get colonies. Yeah, you might want to treat. Already treat what's good.
Yeah, that's the question. How do you feel about the bug, right? There's lots of pros and cons there.
You got thoughts, Ray?
And Mike, you'll find there are a lot of things that beekeepers do. The old adage is if you ask 10 beekeepers the same question, you'll get 12 different answers. And my treatment is very high on that list. It's a personal decision.
I plan on treating mine. I'm just trying to get like a grip on exactly why. Because human beings have a tendency to really mess up nature. We think we're doing the best we can. And 50 years later, we find out, boy, that was a mistake, wasn't it?
We're gonna take a break.
I like what
Yeah,
Tim
we're gonna take a break.
Tim Bottom often says on his podcast, the old adage, what's usually good for the bees isn't good for the beekeeper, and what's good for the beekeeper usually isn't good for the bees.
You have thoughts, Ray, that you want to share on this or no?
I am enjoying this discussion.
Yeah, so we're going to take a break, but in summary, right? So there's three ways to approach mites, right? One is to stick your head in the sand and just say, let the bees deal with it, and the strongest colonies will survive. If you choose that method, 80% of somewhere around 80% of your colonies will probably not survive, and you may be impacting the people around you, around your apiary. So that's one option. There are people that choose that option, right? But that's what happens when you choose that option. Option number two is to do monthly mite counts and to sort of make your decisions on to treat your hives based on what your mite counts are. That's sort of the Honeybee Health Coalition's recommendations at this point, that you do monthly mite counts and you use 1% in July and 2% in August to determine your that's your treatment thresholds. If one of your hives in your apiary exceeds threshold, then they're recommending to treat the hives in the apiary. The third option is to do what Chester County has done historically, is treat on July 15th or around July 15th, treat on September 1st, and do the dribble in December. So you basically are not letting the mite counts ever reach probably a level where they're going to cause harm to your bees. That is sort of what the club has recommended in the past. There's no necessary evidence out there that says that's a good thing, but your hives, if you do that, are highly likely to survive the winter. The downside of that is expense and potentially overuse of miticides. Does that sum it up for everybody?
There's a 3.5 in there.
What's that? I knew just.
Monitoring, you don't have to use chemicals, they're IPM methods.
Sure.
There's drone calling, brood spray,
Right.
There's chemical alternatives to help your mite numbers. I mean, there's non.
But when they reach threshold, then you should knock them down. So we're going to take a break, thankfully, and we're going to get some food and drink. Thanks to Pat and Stephanie. And we're going to gather back to sort of talk about the different mite size out there and what you should choose. Sound good? How long's the break? What time is it? Take a break to 10:55, 15 minutes. This is never quick. I talk too long. We're going to get people to come up and volunteer to talk about the different miticides. Yes, sir.
Do you want to give me your phone number?
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Okay, we're gonna get started back up again. I don't know how 2 hours went by so quick because we had more content than what we have. So really quick, if you bought a queen today and you would like to potentially get half your money back because you report on her, you need to see Joanne. Joanne, raise your hand. So if you bought a queen today, Joanne needs some information from you if you want half that money back if you report. So see Joanne. I had one other thing to say. We were supposed to cover a lot. I don't know where the time went. It's already 11 o'clock and the Chestland Preserve says we need to be out of here at 12 today. So we can't linger, which is probably a good thing for most of us. So there were some things that we were going to cover today that I may not have time for. So anyway, so what we're going to cover, which I think is the most important thing to cover, is our miticide treatments right now. So we're going to go over the different miticide treatments, and I'm going to rely on the people from the audience to help me do this because I know some of you are much more experts in the different miticides than I am. So we're going to start with oxalic acid, and we all know who the expert of oxalic is in the room, right, Ed? And Paul. Ed, come on up. Ed, yes, Ed. For those of you who don't know Ed Sharp, he is our nucleus committee lead, and he's also the inventor of the miticide 9000 or mite killer 9000. So I brought the mite killer 9000. So Ed, if you could just talk about oxalic acid, how it works, why you use it, how you use it. Is that okay?
Sure. Well, this is powdered sugar, isn't it? No, that's oxalic.
That's oxalic.
Okay. Oxalic acid, naturally occurring acid.
Well, let me get you, get at a mic, yeah.
I can just set it right here, right?
Yep.
Set it this way? This way. All right. Naturally occurring acid. Very, well, scientifically, it's easy to make. But the great part about it is mice hate it, bees don't mind it at certain levels. And there's several ways to administer it to your bees. It's in the powder form, it's relatively harmless. It's great for washing, it's called wood bleach. Great for washing all the stains off your wood or want to clean some frames, you put it in a bucket, mix it up with water, and really turns wood white. Like teak on your boat. But anyway, so what we do in the winter, obviously with December, we have the oxalic acid dribble. Mix it with, there's a formula to make a liquid, dribble it across your bees. The bees get irritated with it, they spread it around the hive, and ultimately it kills the mice. Mice have very low tolerance for oxalic acid. The other method is the vaporization, which is my favorite. I think Paul's a big fan of it as well. Where if you heat this up to 320 some degrees, it starts to vaporize. Sublimate goes from a solid to a vapor. And what it does when it gets inside the hive, it collects. It condenses on the bees, the frames, and any surface area it can get its hands on. It condensates on them, and then obviously the mites don't like it. They die. The bees clean it off. They move it around, spreads throughout the hive. Currently, I'm not even sure how to say it, but it was just recently passed that it can be done with honey supers. There's no licensed or labeled product that says you can use it with the honey supers yet, but the FDA and the EPA have approved it for honey supers, with honey supers. But again, yes, nothing, there's no product that currently carries that label. No one has changed their labels yet. In February, it got changed, Justin.
I thought they only raised the acceptable level of oxalic acid in honey to be safe to humans, not that they allow honey supers to be on.
No.
While vaporizing.
They actually, again, we're not gonna make that debate here, but they did change, they put an amendment, FDA made an amendment to the label that can be added to the oxalic acid to be approved to be used with honey supers in place.
It's an additive.
Just quickly, about 13 years ago, they did a lot of testing in England.
Yes.
And they tested with oxalic acid vapor every day, and they could not find a detectable increase in oxalic acid in the honey.
And I'm sure that's true.
Oxalic acid occurs in honey naturally.
In Europe, they've been using oxalic acid far longer than we have.
24 years.
So again, you cannot use this with your honey supers on currently. With, again, because like I say, there's no product that allows it.
Is that because it's not pure oxalic acid?
No, it's because it labels the law. There's no product that has it written on its label saying to be used with honey super farms. It's current, I think Florida Labs is working on getting their label changed. You know, they have to pay the EPA and yeah, so they have to pay for all that extra labeling. Ultimately, it's going to be worth it. But yeah, oxalic acid in a vapor form is dangerous to humans. Do not breathe these vapors. You'll have a cough that you can't get rid of for a while. You know, you'll have this dry cough. You want to wear not just your N95 particulate respirator, but you want to wear a full 3M organic vapor, pink filters. And depending on how nervous you are, you know, it's not a bad idea to wear one on the face. This 300 some degree liquid hitting you is not going to be a happy day. But all that aside, vaporization is an extremely effective way of killing mites. It does not penetrate the cappings. So if you're trying to use it now, obviously we all have brood in our hives, at least we should. And if you do, you're only killing the phoretic mites, the mites that are on the bees while the bees are walking around, they're coming in from the field. You know, so if you do have brood, it's a multi-step process. You know, as the bees emerge, you hit them again every several days. Now, my cycle is every 3 days. It's been shown to have an efficacy rate of 3 days. After 3 days, it's the concentration inside the hive is extremely low. So every 3 days, I'll hit them till I get a full brood cycle plus an extra 3 days. You can lock your queen up for a couple days, you know, to make the brood break. So once the cappings are exposed, all your mites are exposed. You can hit them that way. If you have a queenless situation where all your brood exits, you know, you go through all your brood in your hive, and the queen is still a virgin or hasn't mated yet, it's a perfect opportunity to shoot them with vapor. It's quick, you know, a shot like that is a once and done gig. You know, extremely high efficacy rate. There's several ways to administer it. Like I say, we talked about the dribble that the club does in the winter time. I think we offer the oxalic acid, the actual liquid form, and you go to Tractor Supply, get your syringe, and you do your dribble method that way. Okay, we got the vaporizer, a ProVap. You know, this is my version of a ProVap, but it's still just a vaporizer, heater, fan, with the recommended dosage. Now, this is the recommended. It's 1 gram per deep 10 frame box, which there's been studies of increasing that number. Now, I think a lot of that increase is due to people's wooden wear, how well the hive sealed. Best case scenario in a laboratory situation, it was 1 gram, which is a 1/4 teaspoon per 10 frame deep box. Two deep brood box, half teaspoon. Put in your, and again, I'm just going to illustrate through. This is my vaporizer, but there's the other style, which is the pan style, which you work off of a 12-volt battery. Same gig. This is a cylinder heater. You know, the other one's a pan style heater. Put your 1/4 teaspoon or whatever. Well, with this case, you put it in here because this is already at 380 plus degrees, typically around 400. You put your 1/4 teaspoon, half teaspoon, you know, depending on your configuration of your hives. You know, for us, it's this pops on, flip it over, the oxalic acid hits the heater, it jettisons into the hive,
coats the inside of the hive. With the pan style heater, very similar. But now with the pan style, since there's no way to apply it while it's hot, because it'll vaporize once you pour it in there. You got to cool your vaporizer in a bucket of water, add your quarter or half teaspoon into your pan style wand, slide it into your hive, hook it up to your battery, your 12-volt battery, do your, I think it's like 8 minutes, depending on what style vaporizer you have. You want to test it outside your hive to see how long it takes to fully sublimate before you do it. And then you start over, slide in your hive, battery for 8 to 10 minutes, take it off, let it rest for another 15 minutes. Yes, sir.
Seal your entrances? You doing that?
Yes, absolutely. You're sealing your hive. You're sealing your hive. Now with the vaporizer, again, after you vaporizer, because you know with the pot style vaporizer, the administration is a lot faster. You know, 30 seconds a hive. You're still keeping them sealed up for 15 minutes or so. It allows that stuff to condense. You know, if you take your rag off and the stuff just blowing out in the wind, obviously it's not helping your bees at all. So once your hive's sealed up, you slide your wand in, hook it up to your batteries, give it its 8 to 10 minutes, unhook it from the battery, let everything calm down, give it 15 more minutes, pull it out, put it in a bucket of water to cool it down. Reason to use the bucket of water to cool it down, so you have a baseline. You know, after I pull it out of the bucket, and when I plug it up to the heater, I have 10 minutes of wait time, unplug it. You're resetting it every time you go to the next hive. They're relatively inexpensive. I think, you know, between 70 and 120 bucks for the wand style. This style here can range, everybody's making them now. They range from anywhere from $500 to, I've seen them as low as $150. But the vaporization is an excellent way for treating hives while they're broodless. It's an okay way of treating them while they have brood. That's pretty much it. You know, like I say, oxalic acid is my favorite. just
When do
because
you
it's-
use it,
it's-
Ed?
What's that?
When do you use your oxalic acid?
Yeah, again, it's best during no brood.
Right.
So if you're making a split or something like that, with a walkaway split, you'll have a brood break where there's no brood. Yes, sir.
You want to treat it in evenings,
I,
early morning when everybody's in the house?
that is ideal. Just like you said, you want all the bees that you can have in that hive, in the hive. And, yes, sir.
Does anyone have experience with a fogger, an alcohol fogger?
Mark does. Well, there's kind of some alchemy there, some witchcraft, some unapproved application kind of stuff going on there. So that, if you want to talk to Mark about it, you know, Mark knows more.
My pretty.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you, mineral oil with wintergreen essential oil does not knock the mites down.
Yeah.
I tried that my first year. That is not.
Well, again, we're on a time frame here, so, you know, I want to pass the torch over to the next guy for the next treatment, but oxalic acid, do some research, give me a call, whatever you want, I can talk you through it. It's a great no brood treatment. And like I say, with brood, it can be done. It just takes a lot more work.
One more note.
Yes, sir.
When oxalic acid is sublimated, it is invisible. Don't think because you don't see the fog that you're safe from breathing it in.
True
When
enough.
it's sublimated, it's completely invisible. It's only when it's recrystallizing in the air that you can start to see the fog.
Always,
Protective.
always check the wind direction before you start and try to stay.
Again, I recommend using the full respirator. And like I say, depending on how cavalier you are or not.
Mucous membranes are the point of contact of how it kills mice. It's when they're sticking out of their teeth. So think about your eye, think about your mouth, any kind of wet surface that it could come in contact with, that's where you're gonna get the irritation.
Your lungs.
Yeah, like I say, you'll get that cough that there's no amount of water that's gonna get it away. Yeah. All right, George, thanks.
Thanks.
One last comment.
Yes, sir.
When Ed talked about doing the dribble in December, mostly for beginners, the reason we use the oxalic dribble in December is because the queen has stopped laying, so there are no mites inside the cells that are capped, so 100% of your mites are on the adult bees, and so that's when it is most effective.
Correct, you're all correct, for sure. And the cluster could be too tight and the vapor will penetrate it anyway.
That's right.
So I think in summary, oxalic acid is great when it's broodless. If you're going to use it when there's brood in the hive, you probably have to use it every That's saying 3 days. I think the recommendations are 5 days for the whole brood cycle. So every 5 days for 5 treatments to cover the full 21 or 24 day cycle to get all the phoretic mites. It's cheap. Once you buy your vaporizer, the oxal, you can buy enough oxal to last your beekeeping lifetime. So it is cheap, but you need to, in addition to buying the vaporizer, you need to buy some sort of mask to protect your eyes and your lungs from vaporization. So
One more thing about get the biggest bang for your buck is after you treat, put a sticky board underneath your hive. So you also be using screen bottom boards, right? And so slide the sticky board in and cover it with mineral oil. Cover it with mineral oil or vegetable oil. Vegetable oil works fine.
Or Vaseline.
What?
Yeah, Vaseline.
Or Vaseline.
Yeah, Vaseline. Yep.
Actual grease, whatever you got.
Whatever you got. Something that just, you don't need much, just so the mite will stick, but they should be dead. And when they fall down and you pull it out after a day, if you see 100 mites on that board, that'll tell you something that a shake won't. So if you have 80,000 bees in your hive and you're infected at a 1% level, that's 800 bees have a mite. If you're sampling a half a cup, that's 300 bees. So you're not even sampling enough to show you one mite if you only have a 1% infection and you're looking at 800 bees. But if you treat with oxalic acid and kill all those mites, then you could reasonably expect at a 1% level, 800 mites are going to drop onto that sticky board. If you get 100, because you're not going to get total kill, you should be pleasantly surprised that you have treated and done a good job. So that's what I look for. If I see like 100 mites, then I will be worried about an infection in the hive and I will treat again in 5 days, or as Ed says, 3 days.
Sure.
So use the sticky board.
Megan Milbrath. Megan Milbrath on Bioform Partnership. The short answer is the recent EPA ruling on oxalic acid, that this ruling does not change the way you use oxalic acid in your hive. It does not mean you can use OA with the honey super swarm. And it goes on to explain why. It just, they don't test for OA anymore in honey.
Right.
And you can't get in trouble for it, but it doesn't mean you can treat.
No. So when I do it, I take the supers off, put a foam board on, the same foam board that I use for insulating in the winter, put the supers back on just for convenience. And then after a day after the treatment, you can take the foam board out, no problem.
correct. So if you're using oxalic acid, you should take your supers off.
You take all your bees out of your supers before you put the foam board on?
No,
Leave them in there.
just let them off, put the foam board on, put all the
Worry
bees.
about the bees on the foam board because they don't have mites on?
Not many. No, you might be gonna be in the brood area.
You'll get them next, in 3 days, you'll get them. I'm gonna have Tom go next. Tom's gonna talk about Apigard. Are you up for talking about Apigard? What Apigard is, and we're doing our organics first, so come up here, Tom. You need the mic, so otherwise, and the camera.
Hi, everybody. I actually went over this at the beginner class, the other class that we had right before that. Apigard is the herb thyme's oil, okay? And it's a very natural product. It's very easy. I think as a beginner, this is a great thing for you to use. It's very simple. There's no excuse for not doing it. You simply are going to be doing this. It comes in a little tin. All right, it's a gel, and you're going to use one application per hive. Okay, on the top super. You're going to put an empty super on top. All right, just plain empty super, and then you want to put your top back on after the application is complete. The bees will go in. They will take the substance and they will disperse it. You don't want that. It stinks. They don't want it in there. And they will throw it right out the front door. Well, by doing that, they're fumigating the whole hive, and you'll get a good drop from that. So you're going to do it twice. It's actually a 1 month treatment and 2 weeks apart. You'll go in after 2 weeks. You'll look and see if everything's gone. You're liable to find your little tin dish kind of filled with the red propolis all around it, because that's what the bees do. If there's something foreign in there, they'll just load the whole thing up with propolis. So after the 2 weeks is over, you repeat it. The bees, once again, will go in, they'll clean it out, and you should be okay. My treatment method is I did the Mite Away quick strips to start with this year. This is kind of a switch up between the ApiGuard, which I used last year. I'll use ApiGuard in other hives this year that I didn't last year. I just try to do things that kind of switch things up and make it different so the mites don't get used to one treatment. Okay, so that's pretty much it on ApiGuard. It's pretty simple, easy to use. I highly suggest it.
Honey supers off?
Yes, you can. You don't have to have them all,
label says
but
you
you
have
have to. You got to make sure that if you use this, you can no longer take your honey. All right.
For human consumption.
You can't take. It's not something where you can continue to take honey.
Also, in case your tin breaks, don't spread it on your wooden frames. The smell never leaves. I have frames years old that I've aired out so much, and it just, the smell is very strong, and you don't necessarily want to mess with the pheromones all that bad, so leave it in the tin, don't spread it. And it's actually a synthetic made replica of thymol oil. They actually use a couple different gases and other material. It's a synthetic thymol material.
Oh, let me point out one other thing. It is a good treatment to use for nukes. Okay, but you only want to use a quarter of the tin. Okay, so you're gonna get like a little tongue depressor or popsicle stick and just cut the thymol into 4 sections. Put it on a little card. A lot of times you'll get the treatment if you order a big bucket of it. They'll send you little cards to put the put the application on. Good thing to use for your nukes. Same thing. 2 weeks apart.
Awesome.
Good.
Good. Any other questions for Tom? It's probably an underutilized treatment in our club. Tom's been using, how long have you been using ApiGuard for? Bunch, 5 or 6 years. So he wouldn't continue to do it if it didn't work, right? So it's something to consider.
Someone gonna cover April light bars?
Would you like to?
I can tell you about it. It also uses.
Come on up. Otherwise I can't hear you, Justin.
Sure.
So Justin's going to talk about April Life Bar. Yeah, but that's okay.
All right, so April light bar strips come in these yellow packets. Sorry, I don't have any with me. And they're a dark gray foam looking piece of material that's impregnated with the synthetic thymol gel. It also has eucalyptus oil and menthol. And what you're supposed to do with that is you're supposed to break that wafer up into 4 pieces and put it in the corner of your hive. Also, you're not allowed to have your honey supers on. And one warning about those wafers is that if you put them on top of plastic frames, the combination of those oils tends to melt the top of plastic frames. So that's a little bit odd. The smell can be overpowering. I've had some swarms that I've tried to treat with it abscond from their box. So that's another thing you need to worry about with using things with high smells. You're going to interfere with the pheromone communications, and they could abscond. You know, if you newly caught a swarm, you move them into a brand new box, you know, they could leave. So that's another treatment that's considered kind of all organic.
Is it 2 weeks and 2 weeks, the same?
Yep, I believe it's the same schedule. After 2 weeks, you replace it with another wafer in there, and yeah, it's pretty much a month-long treatment.
Can you say the name again?
April Life Bar.
April Light.
Yeah, April Life Bar. Like that's ApiGuard, the thymol gel, and then AP Life Bar are the wafer strips that also have eucalyptus oil and menthol as well as the thymol.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. Anyone a Formic user? Mite Away quick. I know Justin is trying to spread the, anyone a Formic? I'm sure someone's in here. Formic acid, Mite Away quick strips. You talked already, Tom. Anybody?
Formic acid pro is a better version.
Yeah, so anyone want to talk? You don't want to hear me, do you? No. So I'll talk on this. So there's 2 treatment options for formic acid. So formic acid is the only is the miticide that's that's okay to use with your honey supers on. So you don't have to take your honey supers off when you use formic acid. There's two products that have formic acid in it. One is Mite Away Quick Strips and the other is Formic Pro, both made by the same company. What they are basically formic acid sort of impregnated in these strips that you sort of put on your brood chain, put over your brood. So the treatment is two options. One option is you can use 2 pads for 7 days or 14 days, depending on Mite Away or Formic Pro, or you can use 1 pad and then 10 days or 14 days later, you use a second pad. So they say you may want to use 1 pad if you want to be a little less toxic to your bees, because it's a little less formic acid, and spread your treatment out. It is the treatment that probably is the harshest on the bees as far as treatment goes. So when you put this formic acid pads in there, you'll notice a lot of bees just kind of hanging out outside the hive. You'll also notice some potential queen loss with it. So as far as toxicity to bees, it's probably the most toxic thing that you can put in your hive. With that said, it's very effective too, because it's killing the mites that are on the bees and also the mites that are under the capping. So with a single treatment, you're going to get mites in both places, and that's really the only treatment that does that. The considerations with formic acid are that you have to have enough bees in your hive to put formic acid in. I tried to use it on nukes just because I was stupid, and it's not in the label. And there's a reason why it's not in the label, or it hasn't been figured out, because it's just too toxic for the amount of bees. So you have too much formic acid and the bees can't circulate, and it basically kills bees and stops the laying of the queen. So I tried to use like half a pad or a pad or some stupid idea last year. I didn't follow the label, and I basically messed up half my nukes because I was trying to be smart. So you have to have 6 frames of bees to use the product. If you don't have 6 frames of bees because your hive swarmed, or because you're in a nuke, you're going to have probably more toxicity to that hive than it may be worth. So just to keep that in mind. The second thing about formic acid is you need enough ventilation through your hive. So you want to leave your entrance reducer, your mouse guards off, so you have enough ventilation. If you don't have it, then you may want to sort of increase the bottom ventilation. It's probably a good idea, just like with oxalic acid, to put if you have a screen bottom board, to put your insert in, and also to not have too much setback on your honey supers while you're using it. You probably would put your honey supers back lined up if you're using it. The Formic Pro versus Mite Away, they're both formic acid. The Formic Pro, it's thought to be a little gentler on the bees, and it's also got a longer shelf life. So if you don't use it all this year, you could use some some next year. The thought about the Formic Pro is some people don't think it's as effective as the Mite Away Quick Strips, but I don't know if the data actually supports that or not. So that's formic acid. Yes.
Wear gloves.
Yes.
Pads, because it does burn your skin.
Correct.
And if you're worried about your entrance being fully open during like dirty periods, you can just use some 8 mesh cloth, bend it into a V, shove it in the entrance, and cut out a little opening. So you have a reduced entrance, but full ventilation. And my tip is locate the queen, put her above the formic pads. I've never had a queen loss due to formic, because I do that simple thing. I put the queen above so she can run away and escape upwards if she needs to. Formic acid is heavier than air. So that's why you put your bottom board insert in. You want to fumigate, but you don't want it to all fall out of the hive.
Do you run queen excluders usually, or no?
If I do have queen excluder, say on a single deep, I will remove the queen excluder and I'll put her in my lowest super if I'm putting the formic one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, in the packaging, they say you could leave your queen excluders on. So, and they don't talk about moving queens, but I could see where maybe that would be a benefit to move your queen above your formic pads.
It could just be anecdotal, but
Could be.
I haven't lost a queen yet due to the formic.
But Justin is obsessive about following the label, which I think helps too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, follow the label, read the instructions, right? Read the instructions before you put the product on.
Did you comment on the temperature range?
I did not, thank you, Ed. So the temperature range is 85 degrees for the first 3 days, so no higher than 85 degrees. So that makes it a little bit of a challenge to find time to put it in, especially if you're breaking up the treatment into into one strip, and then 10 days or 14 days later, another strip. No one knows what the weather's going to be like or 10 or 14 days. So you're playing a little bit of a risk with that.
You know what it's gonna be 4 hours from now.
You have to.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Yes.
Does the temperature matter for the other two treatments that you discussed earlier?
Oxalic, no. Thymol, Apogard, does
Well,
temperature matter?
It's
Not-
much higher. It's
not-
much higher.
Not under 50 for oxalic acid.
Not under 50. There's a lower temperature for the vapor, right? Which has to do with, which more has to do with the bees being in cluster or not necessarily?
No, it has to, it's the ability to
Sublimate.
sublimate, recrystallize.
Okay.
Too low, it doesn't vaporize, too high, it's that.
Okay.
Did you mention about supers on with the formic?
Yeah, you can leave your honey supers on with your formic.
It's the only one that's approved.
Right. So that's formic, and that's Mite Away Quick Strips and Formic Pro. Apivar, any Apivar users?
Really?
Ed, you want? No?
I use it, but
No, don't want to talk about Apivar? I'll talk about Apivar. Apivar is probably the most efficacious as far as mite killers out there. Though Formic is close behind, probably. Ed, I mean, Paul's telling me he doesn't think so. You know, the issue with Apivar is resistance. So it's a synthetic miticide. So we know that, you know, every synthetic product will eventually, the bugs will figure out how to become resistant to them. So that's the same way with Apivar. Apivar can't be used obviously with your honey supers on. And I would even take your honey supers off, even if you're not consuming that honey. I think it's probably wise to take anything that's going to have potential food in it off of it when you have your Apivar on your hive. That's just my own feeling on that. Apivar is basically Amitraz. It comes in strips, plastic strips, and you basically are using one strip per 5 frames of bees or brood. Bees per 5 frames of bees. So usually, if you have a double deep, you're using four strips of Apivar, and the Apivar is basically strips that are hung between the frames. So you kind of put it where the brood is, because where the brood is where the bees is. You use a nail and you sort of hang the strip down in between the frames, and you kind of space out your strips to get your brood covered. And 3 weeks after, see Ed, and 3 weeks after you sort of put them in, you can move them, because where the brood nest is, where you put them in, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks later, the brood nest will be in a different location. So if you want to be really obsessive about it, you move the Apivar in 3 to 4 weeks to where the brood is. And it's a total of 6 weeks treatment. So it's a nice long sort of treatment that covers your hives for 6 weeks. It is only getting the phoretic mites. So it's only getting the mites that are on the bees, but it's in there for so long, you're basically covering 2 brood cycles to when you're getting the mites covered. Yeah.
I generally try to use that. Really to mid-December,
Mhm.
Basically, I try to get treatment to last up until that first week of November. Right when it starts to get cold, isn't it? You're in pretty good shape. Only another 3, maybe 4 weeks before we leave.
Right. And the broods generally, the bees are done, so the queen's done sort of laying sort of around that time too, sort of like the middle of November. And usually in mid-December, usually there's no cap brood left in the hive. So that's why the oxalic dribble is a good one to do in mid-December. So yeah, so yeah, I was telling that to somebody, and surely I had a strip in there come April. So I felt really, as I was lecturing somebody about the importance of taking Apivar out, and I'm opening up my hive and there's this white thing that's hanging in between the frames. I was like, I don't know what that is, you know?
Of the treatment to stay in there. And what George is talking about, the mite resistance, is the little start of resistance. So you'll find a warm day in November, be able to take that out past the first.
So
Yeah, I think the recommendation that, as Drew said, it's a 6-week treatment, but they say you can leave it in for 7, and after 7 weeks.
take it out.
Take them out.
I like Pete's tip of scraping them off, cleaning them off, and exposing more of the amatraz if you move them with the brood net.
And just one clarification, what George said, he said you can use a nail. You're not nailing them into a frame roll, you can also use a toothpick with a little hole in the top of the strip, and just stick the nail with a toothpick through it and hang it between the 2 frames.
They have a little tab that comes out that you're supposed to be able to stick on a frame. It's a mess.
They don't work well.
They don't work well at all. So the best way to do it is to just hang it with a toothpick or nail in between the frames. So that's Amatraz, and you should only use Amatraz once a season. So if you reach the package insert, they say to use no more than twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. And that probably has something to do with resistance or who knows, toxicity or buildup of Amatraz. So you shouldn't be using Amatraz followed by Amatraz, honestly. So you should be varying it up. Justin and some others said that we really didn't talk about all the IPM methods to keep your mites low, which would be screen bottom boards, drone brood culling, brood breaks, choice of genetics to what queens you put in your hive, you know, so all those methods that some of us are really good at, you know, are very important at keeping your mite levels low. So if you really want to go the option of I want to minimize my chemicals I put in my hive, you've got to be obsessive about those sort of factors to even have a chance of keeping your bees healthy, honestly.
There's also the powdered sugar.
Powdered sugar, yeah, where you just sort of, that's been sort of talked about once a week. You dust your hives with sugar and they groom themselves and the mites fall off. So, and they get a little extra dose of sugar every week, probably. And they get mad. I've never done it, but they get starchy. So to end this, I'm gonna take a quick poll here, and I'm gonna ask everybody to, you can close your eyes or you don't, be as honest as you want to be. I just want to get a sense of this. Ray probably knows where I'm going. Raise your hand if you don't plan on treating for mites this year. If you plan on not using anything for mites and just letting your hive sort of figure it out and let the strongest survive and let the best genetics sort of prosper. Anybody? Raise your hand. Okay.
Does that mean you are?
I'm gonna raise my hand for each one because I'm uncommitted. No, I don't plan on doing that. So raise your hand if you plan on doing mite. Raise your hand if you plan on doing mite counts and base your treatments based on those mite counts. So you're not going to universally treat, but you're going to measure mites in your hive and you're going to make the treatment decisions based on those mite counts. Okay. So raise your hand if you plan on doing the July 15th, September 1st, middle of December, just to cover your hives and get them treated. Okay, so we're looking about 50-50. So that's sort of the breakdown to where the club sits with this. And thankfully, I'm right in the middle on this one, to be honest with you. I can see the benefits of both ways of doing things.
George, is an option of only treating if you have mites in July and then treat everything in September.
I'm with you, Harv.
Okay, so that's a hybrid, right? So sort of like, you know, like, okay, I'm going to try to delay the treatment as much as possible, and then in September I'm going to treat them all to get the winter bees healthy.
December dribble is almost a no-brainer. Might as well wear your winter.
You get all 100% mite kill by doing that in December, and you know you're going to help it come spring. So yeah, it's a no-brainer.
So what's great, go ahead, Ed.
There's 2 other synthetics that you didn't mention that we don't recommend.
Correct. Apistan,
And checkmate or
Kumafos.
bad guy.
Yeah, Apistan and checkmite. There's high resistance and there's lots of toxicity. And I did see they're back on the market now, so you can purchase them, but we don't recommend. They're not recommended. There is a sheet. So there's a couple places if you didn't take notes, you can go to the website, and on the front page of the website, there's the Honeybee Health Coalition Varroa Management Recommendations right there. You can click on that. If you want to watch some of your CCBA members talk 2 hours on mites underneath there's a video that we did that talks about different of these mite options, and you can watch it. There's also this single sheet that Jack's going to have on the table back there. If anybody wants to take a picture of this and take it home, so there's resources out there if you sort of want to go home and study this more carefully.
Copyrighted, we'll put it on the website, but right now we think it might be, so.
You know, this is tools for Varroa management, Honeybee Healthy Coalition. This is what's on the website currently. So if you go to the homepage, this is sort of the, I don't know what you'd call this, the sort of the gold standard right now for recommendations regarding Varroa management. So again, that's a great resource that's on the website. The just so everybody know, the Pennsylvania mortality for winter hive loss historically has been like 40, 50, 60%, like really high. If you look at the hive loss in Chester County members who complete their survey in the spring, our hive loss is probably around 20 or 30% of our hives get lost. So clearly, I think the club is ahead of the sort of the state and sort of managing the mites, whether or not it's universal treatment or it's measuring mites and killing mites based on treatment. I think they both end up working at the end of the day. They may have slightly separate other objectives going on, but you know, do something about your mites. So with the last couple of minutes, I have a couple more minutes, don't I? I have 20 minutes. So now we're going to have some fun. I will. Really quick. Howard, you want to do your thing in the winter? Okay, so we're going to go to break. We're going to go done.
Good job.
Treatment free. I didn't mention treatment free. Yes, Justin.
I didn't raise my hand. I do have one yard. A neighbor had a beekeeper living with her. He moved away from work. I took over that hive. Been treatment free since 2017. It's been surviving year after year after year. So it is possible with the right genetics.
Yes.
But you know, when I do mite counts in there, I do get mites in the 20s.
Really?
But year after year, they're fine. I split
But you're polluting all your neighbors?
Polluting how?
How far away? How is it isolated in Chester County?
No such.
We need to move on. You guys can more than happy discuss this at the end. One last thing. This Thursday at 9:30 at the apiary, Daryl and I and some of the other Queen team are going to be doing drone semen collection at the apiary.
All right.
So for fun times, if you want to be, we're going to set up a tent, our microscope, and collect drone semen at the apiary. So everyone's welcome to join for that fun event.